This video is going to cover how to supplement XFS drip tubing. So that's what we use for most of our drip irrigation design, but sometimes like here you'll get a large plant that you don't need to lay down the entire grid of XFS tubing in that area. It sets out by itself, or it's against a hot wall or something and it just needs supplemental watering. So that's the whole purpose of this video, is to show you how to put that together. So here's typical XFS tubing laid out. There it is, leaving its wet spot every 12 inches or so. It's got an internal emitter, and that tubing ends up getting buried so that you don't see it. So the tools that you need for XFS tubing are the tubing, jute staples, and a hammer to bury the tubing just about 2 inches deep. And when it's all done, on the left there you see an area that's all been covered up, so the XFS tubing is not visible. But what we want to focus on is, if I've got that extra plant that needs supplemental watering, what do I do? So I've got 1/4 inch drip tubing with a connector, and we use an emitter on the end to give it a little extra shot of water. So these are your materials. You've got different kinds of 1/4 inch connectors there. There's 2 varieties. You've got the tubing, the 1/4 inch tubing on the right, which every 6 inches or 12 inches has an emitter inside the tube. And then you've got a end plug. Well, let's go back to the tubing. So here's the tubing. Now, different people make this, but essentially it all does the same thing. It's 1/4 inch tubing with, in this case, 12 inch spacing, 1/2 gallon per hour emitters inside the tube. And so you'll end up cutting a length based on the size you need. And then these are the connectors. These are 1/4 inch connectors. This is one by Rainbird and one by NDS. They both do the same thing. On the left there you have an end plug, and on the top the green is an emitter, a 2 gallon per hour emitter. You can decide which size you want in terms of how much extra water you're trying to lay down. So you're going to cut a length of tubing that's big enough to go around the plant root ball that it is you're trying to help out here. And that's independent of each plant situation you have. In this case, this is how you measure it out. You lay the tubing out around the perimeter of the root ball, and then we put the connector on the left there and an emitter on the right. You're going to need a hole punch. This XFS tubing is extra hard to punch through, so you definitely need a hole punch. Now this is what we're shooting for. We're trying to create an extra wet spot around this rose in this case. This is a low water. Well, let's jump to this. So here's where I've punctured the XFS tubing with the 1/4 inch connector, and then I've jute stapled the 1/4 inch tubing around the perimeter to hold it in place. And then you see the end result here is, see how wet it is around this particular plant. Now again, it's individualized. Sometimes the plant is got a hot spot because it's next to a hot wall. That's what we've been finding in a couple of our jobs. And then secondly, you might have a rose that just needs more water than the otherwise dry design that you've got going. Either way, you're just trying to create an extra amount of water to make sure that you don't have to change the entire system around to appease this one plant that needs more water than the rest of the group. So that's how we do this. It's pretty straightforward, but it's just to know what components to use and how to use them. Good luck.